Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Beyond the Scoreboard, and I'm your host, Michael Lyons. And as you can see, we're not in the studio anymore. We're back for summer, so videos are still going to be coming out, but not going to be in the studio, not going to be as regular as every Friday. But we do have some stuff to talk about. It's been like a week and a half since the New York Knicks won the NBA championship, so let's talk about it. The New York Knicks are your 2026 NBA champions behind a historic playoff run by not only Jalen Brunson, but the entire New York Knicks team as a whole, from crazy putback shots by OG Anunoby to Jalen Brunson just being excellent throughout the entire finals. It was an excellent season, and it was a season to come for the New York Knicks. Shout out my guy Mike Brown. I mean, he's done an excellent job in New York. And like Mamdani, the mayor of New York, said, like, this championship wasn't just for this team. This wasn't just for the players, the coaches. This was from the guys from like 10, 15 years ago, like Carmelo, Amari, Iman, JR, to Tibbs a couple of years ago, to Julius Randle, Dante DiVincenzo, like all those guys, they all laid the groundwork for this New York Knicks championship team, and they all deserve just as much credit as a lot of these guys that have played bench roles. Um, Shout out Jose Alvarado. I mean, one of my favorite players to like just cheer for because he's just such a guy that like everybody wants to cheer for. Like he's Jose Alvarado. He's an undersized guard that's just scrappy. I mean, he almost knocked out Mark Williams at one time as like a under 6 foot tall guy, knocking out a 7 footer. So, but I mean, shout out Jose. Jalen Brunson has kind of cemented himself as one of the best small guards we have ever seen in NBA history because no small guard has really done what he's done outside of maybe Isaiah Thomas, John Stockton, kind of, Chris Paul a little bit, but this dude walked down the San Antonio Spurs in game five to win that game. He did the same thing in game four as well. And not just credit for Jalen Brunson. Like this entire playoff run was a little bit of everybody. I mean, Karl Anthony Towns had to play a different role than he was expecting to play. He was more of a playmaker, which we haven't really seen much in Karl Anthony Towns' career. He's a scorer. He's one of the best scoring big men we've ever seen, the best shooting big man we've ever seen as well. From Mikal Bridges, who was damn near about to get benched in the first round of the series or first round of the playoffs against Atlanta because people were gunning for his head, um, to then just shooting excellent in the second round and in the conference finals. OG bad hamstring in the first round, second round, whatever it was, getting a bunch of rest. I mean, this Knicks team did something that a lot of teams haven't done. They won, I believe it was 13 straight games or something like that. That's something that doesn't happen. They've cemented themselves in the history books as one of the best playoff runs of all time, one of the best teams of all time as well, because this Knicks team, you just look at the starting lineup alone, there's not a lot of starting lineups in the history of the NBA that are better than this New York Knicks team. Now, you got the Villanova connections between Brunson, Josh Hart, all those guys. Shout out Dante, who was in, I believe he was in attendance for game three or game four. He's still got a lot of love. Mitchell Robinson, who is the longest tenured Nick, like, and coming on like a contract year. So Mitchell Robinson's gonna be a free agent. I'm so happy that he got his ring with this New York Knicks franchise because Mitchell Robinson, if you're a 2K guy, you know Mitchell Robinson's like one of the best 2K players, and he was super easy to trade for a long time. And he was always super cheap, and he was kind of just like the cheat code to go for, if you were rebuilding a team in 2K. Um, Karl Anthony Towns, all the things he's gone through since COVID with his family, and then a lot of media flack from people, including myself, calling him soft. Hey, I take back everything I said from Karl Anthony Towns. I'll probably still call him out for being soft again, because I do it to a lot of people. I did it to Victor Wembanyama, and I think Victor Wembanyama is the best defensive player in the league right now. Doesn't mean he's safe from being not being called soft. Like, it's just something that happens when you're an NBA player. And if I think you could be playing better than you actually are, a little bit more aggressive than you are, I'm going to call you soft. And that's what I do with Karl Anthony Towns because I hold him to a super high standard as one of the best scoring big men in the NBA. If he's being soft, I'm going to call him out for it. And I did it. I don't know if he heard me, if he heard everybody else in the media, but he turned it around real quick, and was attacking Victor Wembanyama. He was looking at being one of the guys for Finals MVP. Ended up going to Jalen Brunson, which I think was the correct pick. Honestly, OG Anunoby also could have deserved it as well because, man, there is not enough words you could say about OG Anunoby. He is quite literally just one of the best role players I think we've ever seen in NBA history, honestly. He does everything. He plays defense. He's a great scorer when you need him. He could shoot. He does everything. He could rebound, pass, and he's not a locker room guy. Like he's just a good person, I believe. I've never met OG, but seeing how people talk about him, seeing the way he acts, reacts to things, I believe OG is a very well deserving player for this championship. It's his second in his career now. Obviously, he didn't get to play in his last one against when he was on the Raptors when they beat the Warriors, but OG's a two-time NBA champion now, and Jalen Brunson's got his first. Crazy career for Jalen Brunson from being a second round pick, moving on from the Mavericks, taking the pay cut to join his dad in New York, um, start the foundation, building around, having to play like an off ball guy next to Julius Randle, to then being the king of New York, is something that will be remembered by every New York Knicks fan ever. It will go down in folktale, in the history books, as Jalen Brunson is the king of New York. Whether you want to say I feel bad for Carmelo because for me, obviously, I wasn't around for like Patrick Ewing and then wasn't around for like Walt Frazier and Bernard King. Carmelo was like New York for the longest time, and now it's Jalen Brunson. And then Carmelo was also 15 in Denver, and now he got his number stolen by Nikola Jokic. It sucks for Carmelo, but Carmelo's one of those guys that he will still always be remembered in New York, and they will never allow NBA fans to forget how good Carmelo Anthony was. So I'm not worried about him being one of those guys that might get lost in NBA history, honestly. Um, but it does suck that everybody's kind of stolen his crown. LaMelo Ball, for the younger fans, stole his nickname. LaMelo is now referenced to LaMelo Ball, not Carmelo. Um, but Carmelo, shout out to him. This championship was also for him. It was also so great seeing all these guys like Patrick Ewing, Allen Houston, everybody just in attendance in San Antonio and in New York. Spike Lee, obviously. It was a great thing to see. And then you also saw the craziness from the New York Knicks fans, which they got out of hand at times, but you kind of expected it from New York Knicks fans that have waited 53 years for a championship. Um, and then the parade was just, it was insane. Probably one of the best parades I've seen in a long time. Um, Outside of the Dylan Jones getting Patrick Ewing's number on the New York City Town Hall. That was quite the mess up by the people that made those jerseys because If you don't know, number 33 is retired for one of the best Knicks of all time in Patrick Ewing. So don't know how somebody messed that up. But shout out to the Knicks. They deserve all the credit. Shout out to Mike Brown too. Like people were questioning whether Tibbs was the guy, whether they should have moved on from Tibbs at all. Um, and then even halfway through the season, 3 quarters of the way season, the start of the playoffs, people were still like, I don't know if Mike Brown's the guy. And he's silenced all of that. And that's what I love about Mike Brown. He's just a winner. Wherever he's gone, he's won. Outside of he didn't win in Sacramento, he didn't win in Cleveland, obviously, with LeBron, but he's a two-time coach of the year now. He is now a one-time head coach championship champion, and he's a couple-time um, assistant coach champion. He's coached a lot of great players, whether it be assistant coach or head coach. LeBron, Tim Duncan, Manu, Tony Parker, Curry, Clay, Kevin Durant, Draymond, now Jalen Brunson, and Karl Anthony Towns and OG. He has a laundry list of guys that he's coached. Um, and he's done an excellent job wherever he's gone. So I'm super happy for Mike Brown and this entire New York Knicks team. They deserve it. Now, moving on to the flip side, talking about the San Antonio Spurs. Everybody's super, um, kind of like hard on them right now. I'm not going to harp on them. They're the second youngest team to ever make the NBA championship behind, I believe it's like the Supersonics or the Trailblazers in like the 70s or the 80s. And they, I believe it was like they were winning 78% of the time in the NBA Finals. You don't do that as a bad team. You do that as a young team that has the chance to be a great team, and that's what they've shown. Yes, they didn't win. Yes, they blew a couple leads. But also you have to remember Victor Wembanyama's 23, Dylan Harper's 20, Stephon Castle's 21, 22. I mean, this team is extremely young. Mitch Johnson was in his first ever playoff run, first ever NBA Finals as a head coach, and it was his first full season in charge of this San Antonio Spurs team. He did an excellent job. People are heavy criticism on De'Aaron Fox saying he should be traded. I've already seen San Antonio say, we're sticking with De'Aaron. Now, I've also seen Dylan Harper's camp is a little upset that Dylan Harper is probably not going to be in the starting lineup again next year because the Spurs want to bring back De'Aaron Fox. That could mess some things up. It's also the San Antonio Spurs organization. So I'm not going to think too much into it right now because they've they've figured out how to work through things that other franchises would never have the chance to do. So I'm going to trust Pop. I'm going to trust this Spurs organization. They still have the morals and the values from the Pop days, whether he's the coach in front office or even if he leaves the organization as a whole and just goes fully into retirement. This Spurs organization reminds me of a team that will just hold their morals and values as an organization for the rest of history. Now, it could change, obviously, new ownership, whatever, could definitely change that. But this San Antonio Spurs team, I've said it like a couple weeks ago, they got to earn their stripes. I thought they were going to do it against Oklahoma City. They they beat Oklahoma City. They beat the defending champs on the road to the NBA Finals. Then they earned their stripes. Did they have a chance to win? Yes. They could have easily won this NBA Finals because they were leading in almost 80% of the series. But they are a young team. They're playing a very experienced New York Knicks team. Whether they had finals experience or not, they were I don't even know the average age of both teams, but the Knicks clearly had that in favor of them. Um, so you got to take that into consideration. And they had a coach that's coached in the NBA Finals, not as a head coach, well, as a head coach with LeBron, and then as an assistant coach with the Warriors and the Spurs. So he was familiar with it. And the Knicks crowd, they traveled. So even when they were in San Antonio, it still kind of felt like a home game for this Knicks team at times. So all signs were pointing at that this was going to be a New York Knicks finals win. Um, but everybody was expecting more from the San Antonio Spurs team, and I think we got. I think for what I expected, I think we got it. I think the Spurs, they showed flashes of being excellent. They showed flashes of being able to win, but they were just too young to do it. And now the question is, what do they do to get back to this situation? Do they just run back the entire team? Do they make a drastic move? Do they make some moves around the edges? I think they're going to make some moves around the edges, whether it's trading a guy like Keldon Johnson or Devin Vassell, who are on some bigger contracts to free up some space, maybe get some pieces that fit a little bit better next to Victor Wembanyama, Dylan Harper, and Stephon Castle. I think that's what they're going to do this offseason. I'm not expecting any crazy drastic changes. Like I said, I think De'Aaron's going to be in a Spurs jersey again next year. I said that right after they lost the finals. I'm saying it again, and I was saying it during the time that the Spurs were saying, yeah, we're going to bring back De'Aaron again next year. He's still our guy. Like, we can't discredit a guy for having one bad playoff run while also being injured. Um, and he was also in something that was new. Like he's only played in 7 playoff games prior to this. He's almost at this point he's probably tripled, double, tripled the amount of playoff games that he did in Sacramento in his first full season in San Antonio. And it's not like he was the sole reason they lost. I know a lot of people are placing blame on him. He wasn't the sole reason they lost. It was a team collective from the head coach to the assistant coaches to all the players that played. It was a team combination of losing this entire NBA Finals. But like I said, they were super young. And Victor Wembanyama showed flashes of he could be the franchise cornerstone, the Tim Duncan of the next generation, the face of the franchise, the face of the NBA. We're seeing that. This is where it starts. We saw with Chet Holmgren, the rivalry that's been beginning since he was like 16, 14, 16, whenever that clip of Victor Wembanyama bawling his eyes out on the sideline. He got his revenge on Chet. Now it's his time to get his revenge on the entire NBA for losing at the biggest stage, and I'm expecting it. Honestly, I'm expecting Victor Wembanyama to come out next year and have a monster year. So, that's really all I have to say about the NBA Finals. I'm filming this on the day that the draft is, and so I can't react to the NBA draft, but I can react to some big changes that have happened inside the NBA, and we're just going to start off with Giannis Antetokounmpo is no longer a Milwaukee Buck. Giannis is now a Miami Heat. He is now a Heat player. That doesn't sound as good as Bucks, but he is in a Miami Heat jersey. Now, this is exactly what Giannis wanted. He wanted to be in a bigger market. Florida's one of the bigger markets in the entire NBA, Miami being the big city in Florida. And he gets to stay in the East, which we've seen is a little bit weaker than the West. And Giannis gets to go play in a warm weather city, whether that's what he wanted or not. I mean, it can't be worse than living in Milwaukee. I've been to Milwaukee one time. It looked like Gotham City. Now he gets to go to Miami, which looks like paradise. Milwaukee moves on from their best player in franchise history, delivered an NBA championship. They did right by him, getting him in a position that he wanted to be. Um, he's still gonna get his jersey retired in Milwaukee. Whether the end of this Milwaukee saga was a little bit rough, a little bit gross at times, whether Giannis was a little bit nasty to some people in the front office or whatever, he will still get his jersey retired in Milwaukee once he retires. And I could also see Giannis maybe last season of his career goes back to Milwaukee just to get his farewell tour, or even just signs like it does a Kyle Lowry, or well, Kyle Lowry's still playing. Who did that? Somebody, I can't remember who signed. Well, we had the Chris Paul thing this year. That was supposed to be like his farewell tour. I'm trying to think of somebody that like signed like a 1 day contract with a team just to retire. Um, but I could see Giannis doing that as well. The trade details are the Bucks are trading Giannis Antetokounmpo and Bobby Portis to the Miami Heat for Tyler Hero, Kel'el Ware, Jaime Jaquez Jr., Kasparas Yakashonis, 3 first-round picks, including the number 13 overall pick in tonight's draft, a future pick swap, and a second rounder. I think that is excellent value for this Milwaukee Bucks team that is heading in the direction of a full-on rebuild. You get Kel'el Ware, who has some superb untapped potential. It's whether you can get him to fully buy into work, like working to become the best player he can be. We've seen at times Kel'el Ware, and I think that was one of the reasons why he fell in the draft. Now that I remember, is that he just doesn't have a super high motor, which it's not like it's on the court necessarily. It's more like an off the court thing and trying to just continue to grow as a player. We haven't really seen that from Kel'el Ware. And I don't think Miami was super bought into him because they still have Bam Adebayo. Um, Kalel can stretch the floor a little bit, so you would have liked to have that next to Giannis, but it would be tough to run a Giannis, Bam, Kalel Ware lineup. So throwing him in that trade, I think is something that you're fully capable of doing without feeling necessarily like you're losing a huge piece. Jaime Jaquez Jr., again, he's a great player coming off of a great season where he was one of the best bench players in the entire league. I believe he finished top three in Six Man of the Year this year. I could be mistaken. He's a guy that I look at as being a contributor to a championship team, but he's not one of those guys that you're looking at as like, he's going to be the guy that's going to win us this championship. And to get a guy like Giannis on your team, you have to trade these guys that are your seventh, eighth, fifth best player to get a guy like Giannis, who is you're going to be your best player next year. And I look at Kel'el Ware as being your fifth, sixth, seventh best player, Jaime Jaquez Jr. being your fifth, sixth, seventh best player. Those are guys that you're willing to trade that have value for Milwaukee because they are still super young. They have a lot of untapped potential. Jaime, get him in a starting lineup role. Let's see what his career is going to turn into. It's great for Jaime. Obviously, for these guys, like it's a big switch up from playing in Miami to now playing in Milwaukee. Now you're in a position where you're not necessarily always going to be competing for something straight away. Whenever you get put in Miami, they're expecting winning right away. In Milwaukee now, you're not expecting necessarily winning, winning, winning. You're going to want to be a real rebuilding team. And I honestly really like the look for this Milwaukee Bucks team. They also get Tyler Hero, which is kind of just like a money matching kind of thing. I don't know if the Bucks are super high on Tyler Hero. He's from Milwaukee, I believe, or Wisconsin. So homecoming for him. I saw a thing that he was like super happy to be back in Milwaukee because that's where he's from. So that's a good thing for him. Him and Modest, the two white boys, gonna be running out the Midwest right now with his Chicago in Milwaukee. But I do think Tyler Hero will look good in a Milwaukee Bucks jersey. Then they also get Kasparis Yakashonis, which I saw that the Miami Heat wanted to throw Davion Mitchell in this trade instead of Kasparis Yakashonis, but the Milwaukee Bucks didn't want three people that they were going to have to pay after next season, which would have been, I believe, Killel Ware, Jaime Jaquez Jr., and Davion Mitchell. So they wanted Kasparis. He's also a little younger than Davion, so a little bit more potential there. A bigger guard as well, which is always nice. And also, to be honest, I think I like Davion a little bit more in Miami than Kasparis. Obviously, I didn't watch a lot of Miami Heat games this year, so I can't speak too highly on Kasparis Yakashonis. I know he had a really solid year this year in his first full season. So, but I wasn't watching. I still love Davion Mitchell. He's still my guy. I think he's going to fit perfectly in this Miami Heat offense like he did this past year. He showed even last year when he first got to Miami and they were in the play-in and then the playoffs. He's a guy that shows up in some big games. Whether they won those games or not, Davion was showing up. So, shout out my guy Davion. He's going to probably be the starting point guard next year for the Miami Heat without Tyler Hero there. Um, and then the three first round picks, two future first round picks, I believe one is 2030, 2031, somewhere around there. Pick 13, which this draft is loaded with talent, but I feel like you had to throw pick 13 in because that gives Milwaukee a chance to just do whatever. Let's see what um the Tankathon mock draft has going around pick 13. Has LeBaron Philon, it's got Nate Ament, Morez Johnson, Cam Carr. All these guys in this area could fit perfectly in Milwaukee. I don't know if Milwaukee will go with another guard per se, like a LeBaron Philon, um, just because they're gonna have Ryan Rollins. They're still gonna have KPJ, I believe, unless he's on his last year of his contract. Not sure about that. Um, and then you're also getting Kasparis Yakashonis, so it would be tough to have three point guards that you're gonna have to try and get minutes to that are all young, and have a chance to be a stud in the NBA. So I think they look at maybe a guy like Nate Ament in this mock draft, this 2026 NBA mock draft by Tankathon. Has a Daymar going 10 to Milwaukee, and then LeBaron Philon 13 to Milwaukee. I don't know if they'll go with a Daymar. I think he's going to be off the board by pick 10. If he's there, I could see them picking him because you're not super sold on Khalil Ware. And then if you're not sold on Ryan Rollins or Kasparis Yakashonis, you could still go with LeBaron Philon. Um, and I didn't even mention Tyler Hero is also going to be a guard that you have to throw in there. So a lot of pieces that the Milwaukee Bucks are going to have to figure out with their lineup, with their rotations. I think Taylor Jenkins, though, he's shown that he's worked well with super young teams. If we go back to the Memphis days with Ja and Dylan Brooks and Desmond Bane, he had that team looking like the next future of the NBA prior to some things going downhill. But I do think this is a perfect start for this Milwaukee Bucks team. It gives them a chance to move on from Miles Turner, get some more assets, get off of his contract. They're still going to be paying the Damian Lillard situation, which sucks for them, but you get to move on into this new rebuild. You're not going to be competing for a championship, so really that money that you're paying for Damian Lillard is not going to look super bad right now. Um, and then obviously Kyle Kuzma is still a guy that has some value in this league, I believe. I saw that he was kind of upset that people were quoting him as a throw in trades. With he said he was a guy that's like I've never um been a cancer to the locker room. I've never questioned my role. I'm a 6'9" wing that does everything, does what my job is, and you're just gonna label me a throw in, which, honestly, I have a lot of respect for Kyle Kuzma doing that. He has a lot of bonehead plays, but I do think Kyle Kuzma is still a really good NBA player. He's a champion for a reason. Um, so whether Milwaukee decides to stick with him or move on from him, he's still got some trade value, I believe. So this Milwaukee Bucks team is going to look a lot different. Obviously, the biggest name, Giannis not being there, is a huge thing. But now you get to roll out a lineup of Ryan Rollins, Tyler Hero, Jaime, whoever that four is going to be, and then Khalil Ware at the five. That's really that's a good young core, honestly. You could go with a Nate Ament, run him at the four. I personally kind of love that for this Milwaukee Bucks team. And now that Giannis is on the move, what's he gonna look like in Miami? Giannis next to Bam, I think that's a perfect pairing. Andrew Wiggins is still gonna be at the three. Norman Powell's still gonna be there. I believe. Well, they have to re-sign him, so there's a chance he's not gonna be there. But I think being able to run out a lineup of Davion, Norman Powell, Andrew Wiggins, Giannis, and then Bam Adebayo, I think that's a really strong starting lineup. Whether they're gonna make another move, for maybe a better point guard to start alongside and bring Davion off the bench, I still think this is a really good team. The bench obviously is going to be a problem. Bobby Portis right now is really the only guy coming off the bench. But Bobby Portis is a champion. He's showed that he is a guy that shows up in big time moments. Um, so having him is still a great thing. You're still gonna have Nikola Jovic coming off the bench. You're still gonna have like Drew Smith. So they still got pieces coming off the bench. They're still gonna have pieces coming off the bench, which is always a great thing. But are these pieces something that you're like super happy about? That's gonna like push you to be a champion this year? I don't believe so. Next off season, when they can make a couple more moves, whether that's going off the Andrew Wiggins contract, moving on from Nikola Jovic, there's still some pieces to be there. I didn't even bring up Pele Larson, which I believe Miami's still super high on Pele Larson. Um, and I think he could be really good as a bench unit guy. This Miami Heat team doesn't look half bad, honestly. Now, the only big thing is making sure that you get number 34 to a contract extension. That is the biggest thing with this whole Giannis situation. Um, he's on the books for next year, and then he has his player option for 2027, 2028, which is 62 million. So Giannis and Bam are going to be making over $110 million on their contract. But other than them, nobody else is on contract other than Nikola Jovic with 14 million. So you're still gonna have some pieces. Andrew Wiggins is a player option this summer, so he has the chance to accept. He has a chance to move on, and that opens up a little cap space and a little movement for this Bucks or for this Miami Heat team to make a move. Uh, if they don't like the look of Andrew Wiggins next to Giannis, which personally I love Andrew Wiggins next to Giannis. Andrew Wiggins personally, there's guys that I view that are like the exact same player. and they have the same value if they're on a championship level team. OG and Andrew Wiggins are two of the best players in the league you could have when you are trying to win a championship. I fully believe that. They are guys that don't question their role. They do whatever coaches ask for them. They're 3 and D wings that play excellent defense, can score when they need to. They've had big games scoring wise. They've had playoff moments, and they're winners. Andrew Wiggins has a championship. OG Anunoby has a championship. Those are guys you want on your team, and I think Andrew Wiggins is going to fit perfectly next to Giannis, next to Bam, next to Norman Powell, next to Davion. I think that's a really good starting lineup. Is it going to be a championship caliber team this first year? We'll have to see how Giannis is playing because he's still Giannis Antetokounmpo at the end of the day. He could win an MVP this coming season, and nobody would bat an eye at it. He could also play 45 games in the regular season, then be injured in the postseason as well. And then we're questioning why this Miami Heat team even made this move. But you get Giannis, who is an MVP caliber player. You get a bunch of really good players around him, and you get the best coach in the NBA between him and Rick Carlisle. I mean, Spo Spo's gonna look like a beast once again with Giannis Antetokounmpo on his team, being able to coach him. And I mean, that year that they went from the 8th seed to the finals, I believe they beat the Bucks on the road. So he knows Giannis's weaknesses probably better than anybody else in the entire NBA does. And now he gets to like reverse that and gets to work with those. So I think that's excellent for Spo, excellent for Giannis, and excellent for everybody on this team. I think this is the perfect thing to happen for Miami with Spo probably on his last couple years of coaching before he heads into front office, and Pat Riley on his way out of the door from the front office. This is a great transition out of this era into a new era of Miami Heat basketball. And I, I mean, there's no risk. Well, there is a risk, but I genuinely don't think anybody's gonna fault this Miami Heat team for making this move. I don't think Khalil Ware is gonna turn into an all star. I don't think Jaime is gonna turn into an all star. Tyler Heroes art has already been an all star, but I don't look at him as being a guy that's gonna be like Jalen Brunson leading a team to an NBA championship. Kasparis Yakashonis, I don't see that either, but he's still young, so there's a chance. Those 3 first round picks, if everything works out well, the 2 future 1st round picks and the pick swap, if that works out well, you're not in a position where those are going to be super valuable. You're going to be looking at 20 plus. So, genuinely, at this point in time, I believe this is a perfect trade for this Miami Heat team. And I also believe it's a perfect trade from the Milwaukee Bucks. I think this is better than the Boston Celtics trade, trying to get Jaylen Brown and then flipping him. I think Jaylen Brown's a great player. I kind of want to continue to see him in Boston. I think it was a great to have his 1 year by himself, but I do think him and Jason Tatum are a duo that I don't want to see broken up. Whether Jaylen Brown wants that or not, that's up to him. But for me as an NBA fan, I like seeing Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum on the floor together, being two teammates that can lead a team to a championship, which we have already seen. So I like this trade better for Milwaukee. I also like this trade better for Boston. I didn't want to really see Giannis next to Jason Tatum because I do think there are a little bit more holes with that Boston Celtics team than people want to talk about. Mazzulla Ball, what's that going to look like with Giannis? What's the center position going to look like with Giannis there? Because they don't have a 3-point threat at center, which you want to see with Giannis. Now, Bam's not really a 3-point threat necessarily, but Bam is 3 to 4 times better than any of the Boston Celtics centers. I love Nemias Queta, but we can't we can't discredit Bam. I mean, this dude scored 83 for a reason. Um, but yeah, I think this is a great start to NBA offseason, honestly. We get this um about what, a little less than 24 hours before the draft starts. This is going to kick off an excellent offseason, I believe. And I'm happy that this didn't drag on into the first couple weeks of free agency where we just don't see any moves get happen. This was the big time move to happen this offseason. I think there's still a couple big moves that could happen, whether it's Kawhi getting on the move. We also saw Julius Randle get traded, which we're going to talk about in just a second. I think there's still some big time moves to come, but that was the big name that everybody was looking at, everybody was waiting for before they make their moves, was to see where Giannis Antetokounmpo is going to go, and we finally got that, and we got it before the free agency began. So shout out to the Bucks, shout out for Miami for getting that done for us NBA fans. And now let's talk about the Minnesota Timberwolves, which made two moves last night, trading Julius Randle and the 28th pick in the NBA draft to the Brooklyn Nets in a three-team trade that sends Nick Claxton to the Chicago Bulls, and the Timberwolves will acquire Brooklyn's number 33 overall pick for Randle and the 28th overall pick. I'm just going to pull up hoop rumors to see if there's anything else um, in this trade that needs to be mentioned. Chicago will also trade Mohamedou Gay to Minnesota, so all three teams touch, um, which is just something that they kind of have to do just to ensure that the trade goes through. This is just a money saving move for the Minnesota Timberwolves, getting off Julius Randle's contract. He personally didn't play great in the postseason, and I think it's time for a little bit of a reshuffle with this Minnesota Timberwolves team. And we've seen, I just blanked on, is it Sean Marks? Is that the GM of, who is the GM of the Minnesota Timberwolves? Tim Connolly. Tim Connolly. Um, or wait, Tim Connolly is president of basketball operations. Matt Lloyd is the GM. Who's Sean Marks? Sean Marks is with, who's he with? Oh, he's Sean Marks is the GM of the Brooklyn Nets. So I was just mistaking Brooklyn with Minnesota, but Matt Lloyd, Tim Connolly, they have shown that they can reshuffle and just instantly get this Minnesota Timberwolves team back into position to where they compete in the NBA Finals. They haven't made it that far yet, but they've made it to the conference finals. They've shown that they've had chances of making it. So a reshuffle, I believe, is something that could is definitely a great thing for this team, because then after saving money by moving on from Julius Randle, they then signed Ayo Dosunmu to a 5-year, $112 million contract with them. So they bring Ayo back, who had a 40 something point game to win a game against Denver, I believe. He showed flashes throughout the postseason before he got injured. And then even after he got injured, he still did show a couple flashes. I think there's more to come from Minnesota this offseason, whether it's Rudy. I've heard some conversation about Rudy for maybe Derek White, because Boston was very interested in Rudy Gobert. And I think Derek White could fit really well in Minnesota next to Anthony Edwards. I still think it's Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels, and maybe Naz Reid. And then they're really high on Juan Barrington or Yohan Barrington. Um, he did have a crazy like summer league last year, so but he didn't play much this year, so we'll see what happens with that. Um, but I think they want to keep Rudy for another year, just to keep mentoring him because the French connection, they both kind of play similar roles. Yoan's a little bit more athletic, so not exactly a copycat of Rudy Gobert, but the defense could be the same. Maybe not exactly the same because Rudy Gobert is a four-time Defensive Player of the Year, but I like Minnesota reshuffling Julius Randle to Brooklyn. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets moved again. Honestly, he is back in New York City where he kind of broke out. MIP on the Knicks. The Knicks win the championship, and Julius Randle's right back in New York City, but in a different borough. Um, Nick Claxton to Chicago is very interesting because Chicago, obviously, they're not a team that we're looking at as being like a win now team. They got the fourth overall pick. They got Modest. They got Josh Giddey. And now they add Nick Claxton. I kind of like it. I mean, I think Nick Claxton is going to work very well with Josh Giddey as just a lob threat. And he's going to anchor this defense with a team that's at this point not a great defensive team with Modest, with Josh Giddey, whoever they get at pick four, whether it's Cam Boozer or Caleb Wilson. They're both pretty solid defenders, um, which will just make it a little bit easier for them in their first year having a guy like Nick Claxton on the back end. Um, so honestly, I think that's a good move for Chicago, only having to really give up what Mohamedou Gay and a couple picks, maybe a couple second round picks. Let's see if there was anything else added in this because feels like the Bulls just were added to this trade and they just walked out with a guy that I think is just a really solid center. Obviously he's not top tier, he's not bottom tier. He's kind of somewhere in the middle. At times he could probably be closer to top 12 center in the league. Other times he's probably closer to bottom 8 center in the league. Just kind of depends on the Nick Claxton you're looking at that game, whether he's playing with a good point guard or not. One thing with Nick Claxton, the defense is always going to be there, rebounding is always going to be there, and the lob threat's always going to be there. So, honestly, I like this trade. Brooklyn, they get a pick. They get pick 28, which let's see what this Tankathon mock draft has pick 28 being. Malik Thomas, another guard, which I don't like for this Brooklyn Nets team because I think they're gonna pick a guard at 6'2". Um, so hopefully there's a forward like a Cole Pete's been falling, which I personally don't understand why he's been falling so far. Um, because I still think Cole Pete's really good. I think he's gonna go right outside the lottery, honestly. Um, but if a guy like Jaden Quaintance falls because people are worried about his knee, and his health injuries, I could see maybe him going 28 to Brooklyn. Dalen Swain, I could see that. Anybody in the second round, I could see them maybe like a Baba Miller. I could maybe see Brooklyn taking a chance, like a risk on him. Um, but yeah, honestly, Brooklyn, they just kind of add a piece without. They add a guy that they can trade away, which is Julius Randle, who's gonna have value, whether it's a first round pick or two first round picks. That's better than nothing. So adding Julius Randle is no fault for this team because they have all the money in the world to bring people in, whether they want to do it through free agency and get a guy like AR-15 or just take in bad contracts and trades to get capital. Julius Randle is a perfect piece to get, whether he's going to play like a half a season in Brooklyn or and then get traded, or if he plays a full season, then gets traded next offseason. Or Brooklyn could shock everybody and just be like, we got Michael Porter Jr., we got Julius Randle, we got a couple of these younger guys. Why not just rock with this team? Why not just rock with them? Why not just try to be a playing team? If we don't make the playoffs, we don't make the playoffs. We're gonna be in a chance to just get a. We're gonna be. We're not gonna be one of those bottom feeder teams with Michael Porter Jr., Julius Randle, and then if we can spend some big money on like an AR-15, it's not the best trio in the world. It's not the worst we've seen. That's not a bottom three team in the NBA, I believe. So we'd be out of the relegation zone. We'd have a better chance at getting the first overall pick. Why not bring him on? Or we could trade him and have more picks. This opens up a lot for this Brooklyn Nets team. Minnesota, they get off Julius Randle's contract. They bring back Io, who was just better than Julius Randle at times in the playoffs. And then Chicago adds Nick Claxton. Again, a really solid trade for everybody involved. Now moving on. This was one I was a little confused about that happened. Trae Young is signing a 4-year, $212 million deal to stay with the Washington Wizards. One of the biggest things that I was happy about with this Washington Wizards trade and getting Trae Young was that they made it very apparent at the beginning that Trae Young and Anthony Davis were not going to get contract extensions until they saw them on the court, saw the product, and then we're going to decide. I believe Trae Young and his team did an excellent job at pushing the narrative that Trae Young deserves to get paid. They exercised his player option, they declined it, and they put the Wizards in a position where they were going to have to pay him. Then I believe that was kind of a mistake by this Washington Wizards team. Um, Not a mistake to signing him to this 4-year deal, but the mistake was making it apparent that you weren't going to extend him, but then he pushed you to extend him. So you kind of folded and you broke a little bit in what you were trying to accomplish with this team. So I do question whether this was a good move at all. Trae Young is still a good player. Whether Anthony Davis is going to be there or not, that's a huge question mark as well. I was high on what the Wizards did a couple months ago. Now I'm not as high on it just because it feels like they're being pushed around a little bit, which I don't fault Trae Young. I don't fault Anthony Davis for doing it, but I do kind of fault the Wizards front office. Uh, Brian Dawkins, is that his name? No, Brian Dawkins is a football player. What am I talking about? Wizards GM is Will Dawkins. Will Dawkins. I do question whether this whole thing was set up from the beginning to just sign him to this contract extension and make it just look a little bit better, or whether Trae Young really did just force his way to get this contract extension. Um, but again, this is something that we got to watch for this Wizards team. I still think they line up pretty well, so I'm not super mad. You do have to spend your money eventually on somebody, so we'll see what happens with it. Next, moving on to some coaching news. The Dallas Mavericks have signed Dusty May as their new head coach, which, if you're not familiar, Dusty May was the head coach of the Michigan Wolverines that just won the 2026 NBA or NCAA championship. And now you restart this whole Dallas Mavericks rebuild with Cooper Flagg, Dusty May, and Masai Ujiri. this is a really good start to this rebuild for this Dallas Mavericks team. You move out of the Luka era, which obviously nobody wanted to do, but you get a guy that could be one of the best players in the NBA. I think he's arguably has the best chance at being the first American born player to win the MVP in a long time. I believe it's him and Kate Cunningham and Anthony Edwards. Those are the top three names on that list. Whether it's going to happen or not, we'll see. I then had them at pick 9, landing a Michael Brown Jr., getting that guard, and they still have Kyrie on this roster. Whether they're going to trade him, get some assets, or if they're going to keep him. Let him try to mold Michael Brown Jr. into a star-studded young point guard, and we could still be a competitive team, being a play-in caliber team. Because Cooper Flag is, I don't think he's going to hit that sophomore slump. I think he's going to just run straight through that wall, and he's going to be a beast next year. A guy that just he's going to make some noise next year, and I think this Dallas Mavericks team could make some noise next year as well. Dusty May, he is going to have to adjust to the NBA. He hasn't coached at the NBA yet, only been a college coach. It's a huge change. We've seen a lot of coaches flop. Some of the best college coaches of all time, we've seen them flop, from Rick Pitino to Coach Cal. We'll see if Dusty May can make that leap and make it in a reasonable time. But he is set up to begin his NBA career with a really strong team with some pieces that I think he can take some of his college advice into this team and help them not only grow as players, but as a team entirely. Personally, if I was the Mavericks, I don't know if I would have gone after Dusty May. I think I would have gone after maybe Chris Quinn in Miami, or um, Micah Nori in Minnesota. There's a couple other people that are NBA caliber already that I would have gone after prior to going after Dusty May, and maybe those guys said no. I don't know how you could say no to having a 19-year-old phenom in Cooper Flag that is basically the blueprint to the perfect NBA player right now, which is uh what is Cooper Flag? 6'10? A 6'10 forward that can do everything. He's freakishly athletic. He can shoot, he can score, he can rebound, he can pass, he can defend. He can do everything. He can check every box you want him to do. And but now you get Dusty May, so we'll see what happens with that. Also, smaller news. Atlanta Hawks, they make some moves. They get Aaron Wiggins from the Oklahoma City Thunder for 2 second-round picks. Atlanta's 2030 and the least favorable of Atlanta and Los Angeles is in 2032. For Oklahoma City, you kind of just get off the Aaron Wiggins contract. Aaron Wiggins finally gets a chance to hopefully bloom into a player that we just haven't been able to see. Now, people were questioning, like, I mean, Sam Presti gets all these guys for great picks. He gets Aaron Wiggins for only 2 second-round picks. Aaron Wiggins is not a guy that's gonna like command a first round pick, because one, he just hasn't played a lot. Honestly, this past season and in the postseason, he just did not play a lot. And for guys like that, you just can't really expect to get a lot from them. And getting 2 first round picks, getting off his contract, was honestly the biggest thing this Oklahoma City Thunder team was wanting to do, I believe. And knowing Sam Presti, he'll somehow find a way to flip these 2 first round picks into a first round pick, or flipping these 2 second-round picks into a first round pick, and landing a superstar, or a guy that could be an all-star, or a guy that can be the best role player on a championship level team. He's just a guy that can do stuff like that. The Hawks also have agreed to extend CJ McCollum 1 year, $21 million contract extension. I think that's a good move by them. I think CJ, he had those two big time playoff moments for them. Once he got there, they went on that crazy run. It wasn't just him, it was just a mix of everybody. Quinn Snyder did an excellent job to end the year. Having CJ next to guys like Dyson Daniels, Jalen Johnson, and Yucca Kungwu, whoever they're going to get at pick 8, I believe they are. Really good. This team could be definitely bottom of the playoffs, fifth, sixth seed like they were this year, or they could be playing team that then makes the playoffs or misses the playoffs. This is still a really young Atlanta Hawks team. Nickeil Alexander-Walker's coming off an excellent year. CJ McCollum, it's only a 1 year extension, so it's not like you're putting all your chips on the table for CJ McCollum, but I think it's a good move by them. The Suns signed guard Jordan Goodwin to a 3 year, $19 million contract extension. I think it's a really good move by them. They also signed Colin Gillespie to a 4 year, $48 million contract. Suns just making some moves around the perimeter alongside Devin Booker, who just changed his jersey number from 1 to 15. Now, 15, not as sexy of a number as number 1, but the reasoning behind it is Pops wore 15. That's his Team USA number. All those are really good reasons to change your number. Um, one's at this point, one's gonna get retired in Phoenix. Like he led them to the finals. He's gonna probably be their all-time leading scorer if he's not already. Assist most likely, 3 pointers made. He's gonna be at the top of the list for a lot of categories, and he's also scored a 70. He's also had a 70 ball for the Phoenix Suns. But Goodwin, Colin Gillespie, both really solid players, um, guards that are on really team friendly deals. Honestly, 12 million for Colin Gillespie in the year that he just had, and then 12 million a year for Colin Gillespie. And then Jordan Goodwin, 3 years, 19. That's about what, $6.5 million a year. That's really good value for both of those guys. They're not obviously not guys that you're like they're gonna win us a championship, but they're really good role players that if you do land a star next to Devin Booker, those could be pieces that are pushing you further and further and further into the playoffs. And you never know. Devin Booker has a crazy playoff run. He could definitely win an NBA championship with some of the guys around him. And then the final piece of news I have to talk about is the Chicago Bulls have hired Tiago Splitter as their new franchise head coach. I love this move by the Chicago Bulls. You're in a rebuild. Tiago Splitter just came off an excellent year where he took over after night 1 of the NBA season, led his team to the NBA playoffs, and they got a win. With nobody expecting them to get a win. Yes, was Victor Wembanyama on the floor? No, he wasn't. Does it matter? They still got a win. That's all I care about at the end of the day. Tiago Splitter, I think, one, I love that he just did not fall for the tricks that this Portland Trailblazers new owner, El Cheapo, is trying to pull by only paying a head coach $400K. You see this? You hear? I don't hear me saying that the Portland Trailblazers have hired their new head coach. I'm hearing that their coach left them to go join the Chicago Bulls because they were willing to pay. I think Tiago Splitter being able to come in as a guy that was a former NBA player, being able to help Modest, being able to help whoever pick 4 is going to be from Cam Boozer or Caleb Wilson, to even Josh Giddey, who is still kind of a younger player. This is perfect for the Chicago Bulls team. I think Tiago brings a little bit of flair, whether that's just him being a little bit he's not American, so he brings a little bit of that Euro style basketball that he played a lot of his career in. He had a very short NBA career, which think people forget a lot of the times. He's going to bring a little bit more flair, a little bit more of that Euro-centric basketball that could be interesting in Chicago. And I think this is perfect for them. I love Tiago as a head coach for the Chicago. I love Tiago Splitter as a head coach anywhere, honestly. Like if Sacramento one needed a coach right now, I would have been campaigning for Tiago Splitter to become the head coach. Now, obviously, he's only been a coach for like 1 year, I believe, in the NBA. Like genuinely, this year was his first year in the NBA as an assistant coach. He was then forced to be the head coach because the whole Chauncey Billups situation, and now he's already landed a head coaching position for the Chicago Bulls. This could easily blow up in the Bulls' face because he just doesn't have like the criteria, he doesn't have the experience, but also the Bulls aren't competing for a championship right now. So do they need a perfect X's and O's coach? No, they need a guy that can teach these guys how to be NBA players while also teaching himself and having great assistant coaches around him to be a great NBA head coach. So I think this is a perfect pairing for the Bulls and Tiago Splitter. And just like that, this is the end of Beyond the Scoreboard for today. The NBA draft is tonight. I'm super excited to see whoever the Sacramento Kings are going to draft. They are going to dictate how I'm going to feel the rest of the offseason. Hopefully, we get some moves tonight, the rest of the day today, and then by the time next week, we can do a show again, hopefully. Um, but this has been Beyond the Scoreboard, presented by RD. I almost said presented by RDSE. I said that before. I started my show. I did my first take and I said presented by RDSE. We're not in the studio, so I do not need to say that, but you know what? We'll just flow with it because RDSE, they gave me my start, so I'm always going to be willing to rep them. But this has been Beyond the Scoreboard, and I'm your host, Michael Lyons. Have a good one, guys.